Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. Today we have Titanic 20 years later with James Cameron. Uh, 1997 is when the Titanic came out in December, I think, 97, because it dominated the first half of 1998, but it counted as a 1997 film. Uh, my local theater where I lived uh, played to packed houses every screening, every night. It was a big deal. But this documentary, which came out 20 years later in 1997, sorry, 1997, 2017, um, it's not about the movie itself. Yes, there's lots of scenes from the movie, footage. It's a 20th century Paramount production, so at some point, I imagine Titanic should be on Disney Plus. I think, unless there's some sort of legal kerfuffle with Paramount. I have no idea. But yeah, in this situation, though, this is more about the history of the Titanic and the things that James Cameron has learned since he made that film. Now, this is almost sort of an apology tour, I think, in a sense. I get it, at least toward the end, especially, I realize, when he sort of explains to one of the descendants of the survivors of Titanic, which he met up with. He met up with a number of them during this documentary. They all met at the Reagan Library, which apparently a couple of years ago they had a big Titanic display, which maybe it's still there. I don't know. Nobody goes to museums much right now. I think, at least not in California. Anyway, this is James's sort of, like I said, apology tour. He gets together with a lot of the guys who rigged up and worked on the original film, and some people were in fact, the guy who discovered the Titanic, and I've completely forgot his name right now. No, it's not in the details. Dang it! His name's Bob. Robert. Bob. He's the guy who actually discovered the Titanic many years ago. But the point I'm getting to is he also met with a number of the descendants of the people who survived the Titanic tragedy, and he's telling them how I was a screenwriter and I was just sort of telling a story, and I was coming at it from a let's try to make this as realistic as possible, and making it an interesting story, and not so much concerned with the feelings that these were real human beings that he was depicting on screen. The descendants of some of those people who were portrayed a little bit less than ideally were not happy with his depiction of them. I don't think they showed up in this documentary. He does speak with the descendant of the unsinkable Molly Brown, and also the descendants of John Jacob Astor, and a few other people. Not remembering right now, but they get to tell their story and how that compares and what their experience was, and pretty much it's all a glowing, hey, you were great, James. You did a good job. James is also not known for being incredibly humble, but he made a fantastic movie. No matter what you think about the romantic angle, this by the way, this documentary does not go into the was Jack and Rose real, or they don't. There's no Leonardo DiCaprio or Kate Winslet interview. There's no actors being interviewed for this. There's some behind the scenes footage. There are some scenes from the film, but for the most part, it talks about did the Titanic sink the way it did, and because of this film, James Cameron has gone back and done at least 33 dives in the last 20 years since the movie was made, just to because he's become obsessed with it, just to see more of the ship, to see if they got certain things right. It's in an effort. He realizes that there's a lot of things they got wrong, whether it's just the little technical things like was this clock sitting on the mantle over here, or was it sitting over here? Did it fall off? Did it survive the sinking? There's little details that none of us, from a story, from enjoying the film or enjoying the story, care about. But for people like him and his crew and the people who Again, he's far from the only person who's going down and looking at the Titanic. I think there's a bunch of people who constantly go down and look at the Titanic on dives, but it was their effort to see if they depicted the sinking correctly, depicted some of the stories correctly with some of the people, and what was possible. Was it possible that if they had more lifeboats, which they didn't have enough, if they had more lifeboats, could they have saved more people? He tells the story of how the radio guys who honestly were working on Marconi machines, tapping out, uh, you know, SOS or everything else, messages in. I can't remember the word right now. I suck. Uh, but tapping out things, and honestly, everything on that in their story, the main communication thing went down, and they had to use the backup battery one, which had barely any kind of signal, and they sort of hacked it together and made it work, and we were able to contact at least one ship, which saved hundreds of lives. Had they not done that, it would have been a lot more tragedy, more so than there already was. So there's a lot of science in this. This is a National Geographic thing. I was completely wrong yesterday. This is actually a National Geographic thing. He's a explorer in residence or something. I don't know. He has a special title at National Geographic. But yeah, so it's a National Geographic thing with James Cameron about Titanic, and that's a marriage made in heaven there if you're a Titanic buff. I say this. I mean, the Titanic stories and the science behind it, and discovering what it took for the ship to break apart, and what angle was. Are the stories true? Did it get this kind of angle? Was it 23 degrees or 25 degrees, or did it go straight up? And all these different things that people who were there, people who were in the lifeboats, had passed on stories they had passed on to their families, and also obviously they were in the news a lot. There was a number of famous people. I mean, beyond the unsinkable Molly Brown, who survived, and John Jacob Astor, J.J. Astor, who did not. He was, I think, the richest man alive at that point. I think, I don't know, but it was a big deal to get on the Titanic, and this covers a number of different stories in many ways. It doesn't fawn over how great the story was, or the actors, or anything else. If you don't care about any of this, if you care about the science, you care about the history, you care about the people, the real people, this is something that's worthwhile watching. It's kind of neat to go back to see James and his special effects compatriots chopping apart models of the Titanic, working on different theories on how it broke apart and how it. Yeah, it's mostly all staged, but still, it's the idea that they're all working together to figure out these mysteries, to see if they got it right, and see what they got wrong. So yeah, I think it's if you're interested in that kind of history, not just for the Titanic, but how they recreated this ship down to the finest detail that they knew. A lot of the details obviously are at the bottom of the ocean. They were able to take plans, blueprints, and things from their Titanic sister ship as well, and tried to make it as close as possible. But there's stories about the staircase that's gone from the original ship. Where did it go? Yeah, then there's so many other things that they dig around in. So it's I'm jumping all over the place, but to me, this is I was expecting just to watch this in the background and go, James, yeah, that was cool. Oh, I remember that, yeah. But it drew me in, and yeah, for a movie that I haven't seen for 25 years, almost, it still is fascinating to me just to see how it's all put together, and watch them all take it apart and go, okay, we could have done that better. So, and hopefully he doesn't do a George Lucas and try to redo the entire thing just because it was at 27 degrees rather than 23 degrees when it broke apart. No, it's okay. We get it. It's okay. Thanks, James. Mr. Cameron. But yeah, I suggest you get a shot at it. Give it a shot if this kind of thing interests you. So, and you don't care about the celebrity. All right, let's pick tomorrow's.
177.
We are jumping between the hundreds and the 600s, back and forth, back and forth. And if this is another documentary, it'll be the first time I checked this. We've never done more than 4 documentary series or shows in a row. We are now tied for 4. Holy cow! Well, we're not getting a documentary. We're getting a movie this time, and it's actually something related to something we saw just a few days ago, last week maybe. I don't know. It's all running together, but it seems to. If you remember what number 179 was, well, we're going to see number 177, which features the same characters, Marvel characters, but from the 20th Century Fox era, not the MCU. We're going to watch Fantastic Four. This is the Jessica Alba one, and Michael Chiklis, and Chris Evans before he was Captain America, and Ian Gruffeld. That's his name. By the way, the new Fantastic Four is probably going to be a lot different than what you expect. So, anyway, this is their shot. By the way, this is the only Fantastic Four of that era. The Silver Surfer one, the sequel, is not on Disney Plus yet for some reason. Don't know why. Usually there's a reason. Disney knows what it's doing. So, anyway, let's pick it up tomorrow. We're going to watch the original, not the original Fantastic Four film, that belongs to Roger Corman. The original Fantastic Four film from 20th Century Fox. And we'll see you back here tomorrow with that on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge.